Hello everyone, it's Metro Murray, and I have a special guest this evening. Allow me to introduce...
Stop. No names. We're not doing that.
Well, why not?
Because, Mr. Continuity, it defeats the purpose. I mean, why else have the camera cut just below the neck?
I guess that makes sense. Well, me and my friend...
I'm not your friend.
Me and my guest are going to go over some stuff relating to the game Helldivers 2. Give you a brief summary of what it is in its current state, some of the drama that's around it.
Drama is putting it lightly.
Yeah, it's not subtle or nuanced, but we're going to talk about it. Let's get started, yeah?
Sure.
So, Helldivers 2 is an extraction-style, third-person shooter that released fairly recently. 4 players armor up, equip themselves, and drop feet first onto alien planets in defense of their beloved super...
Stop. Tell them about the boot camp.
Right. Before you get a chance to do any of that, the developers decided to create a tutorial training area so that players get a feel for what they're getting into. Learning how to throw stratagems,
Getting shredded by their own turrets if they're blind.
and developing their battle sense and situational awareness as they go. Once you finish that up and get your cape, you'll be allowed to step foot on your own personal supercarrier, ready to load up and face the threats to manage democracy. Terminator-style killbots known as the automatons, giant ravenous acid-spitting bugs, the Terminates, and most recently, highly advanced tentacled aliens known as the Illuminate.
Yeah, it's best to take it slow. If you're just starting out, this isn't your Halo or your Call of Duty, or even your Gears of War. Your life expectancy drops to minutes, even seconds, the moment your feet touch the ground. You will die. And you'll be replaced with a fresh Helldiver who will inherit all of your possessions.
What he means to say is, the game frames it not as a respawn, but as a freshly thawed soldier from cryo taking the place of the one you controlled moments before, which is a detail that I appreciate as being why I feel the game is realistic.
Soldiers don't respawn. Once they're gone, someone else takes their place. Wars are the nastiest business on the planet. You are not Rambo, you're not a war hero, you're meat. And Super Earth is more than happy to throw meat at all of their problems.
It's a disheartening fact, but besides that haunting tidbit, Helldivers 2 is still an unapologetic joyride of a game, and it's only getting better as the devs continue to work on it. It sits as a unique type of game as well. It's a live service multiplayer game, but the perks, its draw, is that the entire player base are working towards a shared goal, a story molded by the success or failures of hardworking, battle-hardened troopers.
Your take is pretty positive for a game that can't seem to get a win.
What do you mean?
Well, Helldivers 2 developers seems to have a problem with staying out of people's mouths. Not counting technical fixes and game updates, any questions regarding the politics of the in-game universe, they seem to give a non-answer, or just PR speak.
That's not really their fault. As a small third-party dev team, they have to keep true to their interests, what they want to make. They don't ponder. And besides, these topics that get asked of the dev team are contrived. They don't come from a genuine place.
Excuse me.
What?
That's a bit inconsiderate to say, don't you think? DEI and the like are genuine problems.
Well, I didn't say they weren't, first of all, but they're also not entirely that big of an issue either.
A non-answer. Please just admit the former CEO shouldn't have said this.
I'm not going to do that.
Why?
Because it's true. These political stances and choices in the game industry only serve to staunch creativity and artistic integrity.
So, we should be adding hair colors and more gender options to every game then? Stories with more representation?
No, not really that either, because if you actually look at games like Dustborn and Veilguard, games that feature heavy LGBT representation, they're empty and contrived. Their story and settings clash with their overall message and make them out to be entirely too bloated and superficial. Overzealous, over-exaggerated caricatures of the politics they're intending to invoke.
So, what are you saying? Because it sounds like you're on my side.
I'm not on either side. Both sides are annoying, and I'd much rather play my video games. If there's a character creator, cool. I'll make one and go. If not, big whoop. The developers either didn't plan for it, or it's not relevant to have one. I like that there's representation, but when you're trying to play the part and do this political commentary at the cost of your game world suffering from a lack of immersion, it becomes slop.
Oh, I get what you're saying now. Veilguard and Dustborn are poorly written.
Yes.
So what's the reason DEI wouldn't fit with Helldivers?
Because, like you said, the life expectancy of Helldivers is quite literally minutes or even seconds. I could care less what my faceless, helmet-wearing, no-name soldier I'm playing identifies as, because they're going to be turned into Super Earth brand ground beef soon. Their identities matter only in a collective sense, and not a personal one. They're not the main character.
So, you're saying the blue hairs think they're main characters?
Well, no, but as far as playing as an accurate or inaccurate recreation of yourself in a game about an endless, warring, far-off future humanity, identifying traits like colored hair or pronouns only exist in a personal context. One we're not going to see because that's not at all what the game is about or what it's trying to depict.
It's needless, especially when there's already other game developers pandering to that demographic.
Yeah. And representation is and can be good if you do it right. Cyberpunk 2077 does it right because it's not trying to incessantly preach it. It just exists, which I feel should be the point.
Quite the tall ask. Have you considered that these types of games, that the type of storytelling you're suggesting is poorly written, just isn't for you?
And that's a good point. I admit I can't necessarily relate to the specific issues and problems, say, a trans person would deal with. I can absolutely emphasize and at least relate having issues with identity. At least like the settings for these kinds of stories to at least, I don't know, be somewhat enjoyable, or for what's being said to make sense relative to the universe it's taking place in. Concepts like gender and trans politics aren't alien to me. I just feel like not all representation is good.
Oh no, there's gays and trans in my video games, better complain online.
There's more nuance to this conversation than just, oh, I'm a homophobe. I'm not.
And a racist.
I'm not justifying that with a response. Can we please keep it on Helldivers?
Okay. So you have a problem with people bashing and politicizing a game with pre-embedded politics. Why?
Because like I've been saying, it's contrived, it's clickbait. The game itself is fine and fun, and if it wasn't, it wouldn't have 100,000 players at peak with at least 20,000 playing it daily.
You think it's bullshit, and I can see where you're coming from. People wanting developers to pick a side when all they want to do is make what they believe to be a fun game.
I don't think developers should be put on the spot and made to answer loaded questions that come from dishonest and divisive places. Special interests trying to force a change on a development studio, or trivial issues that ultimately serve to alienate rather than to unify.
Damn. Alright.
What?
As someone from the outside looking in, I'm sure it's easy to look at it all and just call it annoying, stupid.
Well, no, these issues affect me too, and with the creation and rising usage of things like generative AI and the consistent lowering of the bar with these topics, big companies will continue to think allowing this sort of play of politics into gaming is okay. And eventually, instead of letting considerably inexperienced or bad faith game developers create things like Veilguard or Dustborn, they'll eventually swap them out for AI that can reiterate and rehash those same contrived, tired old politics. We really can't allow that. We have to hold on to our artistic integrity, to our standards.
Wait. You think just because that a few poorly written representation pieces disguised as video games were able to get published, you think the video game industry is what? In danger of becoming a brain rot feeding tube?
Sony spent $400 million on Concord. It only lasted a week. They are quite literally throwing whatever sticks to the corkboard.
Holy shit, you're right. Why do you feel so strongly about this?
What?
Like, what does all this political shit matter to you? It's never mattered to you this much before.
I've been playing games since before I could string together meaningful sentences. I grew up with stories like The Legend of Zelda, Halo, Assassin's Creed. Many stories that had true character and heart, and when I see this political-centric mentality when people approach video games, I'm reminded of a quote from Franz Kafka.
Don't bend. Don't water it down. Don't try to make it logical. Don't edit your own soul according to the fashion. Rather, follow your most intense obsessions mercilessly. And what does that mean?
I feel this politic-brained approach relative to video games only serves to codify the industry into a more logical, to-the-fashion scene, playing into hot-button topics for the sake of appealing to people's anger, their outrage. Because how dare we not be listened to? How dare they not look at us? But entertaining art, even as it leans into political discourse, should at least be somewhat entertaining and approach these issues with an appropriate amount of thought. But when questions like these get asked, there is no thought, only anger, and only divisive intentions. Water it down, make it appeal to me, or go away, bigot, weirdo, racist. When ultimately, a game for everyone is a game for no one. Hey, what are you scribbling down?
Just filling out my checklist. I like to keep punctual, you know. Marking the calendar.